Hello, 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 and welcome to this YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too because you are consuming content like this. The name of this lovely channel is Holistic Manifesting because I believe in a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we are choosing. What I'm discussing in this video is when you learn to alchemize, you become unstoppable. Now, mind you, don't mind my face. I hit my face this weekend. I tripped and it was swollen, so I couldn't get on camera for a second. I'm sure I could have, but I just chose not to. So if it looks a little puffy, it's on the tail end of healing, put it that way. And I was very grateful that the accident wasn't more intrusive than it was. That's all I can. Whenever something happens, I'm one of those people that's like, it could have been worse. And I don't say it in a sad way. I say it in a, man, imagine if that would have happened. So this is light work to me. Nonetheless, it's not going to stop me from delivering the message. When you learn to alchemize, you become unstoppable. And the reason why I've come to this conclusion and why I understand life to be this way is because most of what we are dealing with in our everyday lives is based on our feelings about the vicissitudes of life, our feelings about the minutia of life, the things that are happening all around us, right? It's about how we feel about our marriage, how we feel about our friendships, how we feel about the job, how we feel about our careers, how we feel about how the children are acting, or how we feel about our friends, or whatever it is. It's about when things occur, certain situations or circumstances, and it may be unfavorable from our perspective because, you know, we can't see process. So we're always like, this thing doesn't look good today. That means it's always going to be a bad thing. Even though most of the good things that happen in our lives look like they started off as very shaky things or negative things that we didn't want to experience. And then it blossomed into something beautiful, right? And so alchemizing is being able to take something, a substance from one state, a substance of life, you know, let's be metaphorical, from one state to another state. Meaning you're taking it from a state where it's unuseful to you to a state where it's now cooking, right? I mean, where it's now cooking to a state where it's now useful. And I was thinking about cooking. That's why that word came out. You know, you have raw chicken, you can't eat that. You take it into a cooked state, then you've alchemized something that was unuseful to you in one way, but putting it through another filter made it useful to you in another way, right? And that is so much of what we need to do in life. There's so many things that are occurring to us and for us on a daily basis. And if our perspective is always, this is the worst thing that could happen, this is the worst state of affairs, this is something that I don't even see a way out of, that I can't even understand, then we're always struggling. We're always in the space of life is not being what I want it to be. And when I think about the word alchemize, I think about my entire experience in life. You know, being a divorced mother with 2 kids and not having a real income and not having true support at all financially either from the co-parent, I literally had to learn how to alchemize in order to survive. And then what I feel now is thriving. There was no way for me to look at that situation and say, this is good. This is a nice situation. This is what everybody wants, because that's not the case, right? There was a lot of struggle. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of moments when I was just like, how did my life turn into this direction? There was a lot of moments to where I was trying to figure out, you know, I was supposed to be so much better than this. I had that mindset too. I had that little poison mindset. You know, I was supposed to be so much better than this. That mindset too. But what in that process, there was a part of me that always refused to see myself as counted out, to see myself as not being a person who can rise to the occasion, to see myself as a person not being able to look at this situation and think, how can I alchemize it into something that's useful? How can I turn this into something that's not working for me in this way to work for me in another way? And many times when I talk about alchemizing, I think it's based less on the physical environment and what's going on around us and how we approach those things, and more on how we feel about what's happening around us, how we feel about our interactions, how we feel about something that didn't go the way that we wanted it to go. If you're experiencing something, and a prime example, right? This is alchemizing. I was walking and then tripped, hit the coffee table. All good, you know, still trying to figure out how exactly did that happen. And when I hit my face, the first thing I was thinking about was immediately, Wow, I'm so grateful that I didn't break my neck. Oh, wow, I'm so grateful that, the children didn't do this and it was me because, I feel like I can handle being injured or something. Wow. And that's my immediate reaction. So it's, to me, alchemizing something that I could sit there and feel bad about and be, caught up on and be like, oh, is it going to ruin my face? Or am I going to have a scar or something like that? And think like, life is full of battle scars. It's what you do afterwards that makes all the difference. Life is always going to life. It's always going to show you things and fine tune you and bring you certain situations and circumstances that you definitely would choose not to experience. But one of the biggest things that stops us in life is when we decided that situation is what it is, and not in a positive way. We say it is what it is, and we say, okay, we're stuck here. Okay, this is not going to change. Okay, this is all we have access to. Okay, this is the end of the road. And when we change and flip that switch of, okay, this is what's happening now, but how can I experience a better version of this later? That's when we start to become unstoppable in life. Because think about it. If say if you have enemies, right? Because people talk about enemies a lot. Say if you have enemies in life, people that were always trying to take you down or treat you a certain way or show you that you weren't the greatness that you know you are, or belittle you, minimize you, all the negative things that other people can do to you. If you are in that space and your mindset is that this is what it is, then you never truly get to expand beyond it. What so many people do is stay in that space. They stay in that space and they're always looking at people and things and on the outside thinking like they're fighting some kind of battle. Like they were against me. This person was against me. That was against me. But my thought process is, if you are able to alchemize your situation, then none of those things happening on the outside can ever truly stop you. They can only redirect you from one place to the next. They can only show you, okay, this path is not where you're at anymore. Now you're on a new path, right? I've had so many situations like that in life happen to where I was living in one city and I had all the connections in the world to be a professor in social science and computer science. I mean, like that's what I was doing. And executive director in this area over here literally offered to me, but I took another path because I was like, well, maybe this path will be fruitful because I've been following career path for a while. And that path wound up not being fruitful. And it never occurred to me in that path of, moving to another city and starting over to a certain extent that, okay, well, this didn't work out. Let me just go back home and let me just go back to where I came from. My thought process was like, no, how can I alchemize this situation and make it work best for me? How can I make something out of something that seemed like it was going to be one way, but the path took me another way? So now I need to figure out, how can I make this work best for me? And I did. I alchemized the hell out of it, right? I can honestly say I would never picture myself living in the city that I live in now because it just wasn't on my radar. Had someone else not invited me to move to the city with them. But it's the best home I've ever had, the best vehicles I've ever had, my daughter too, the best jobs and career experiences I've ever had is being here. The best way I've taken care of myself, the best, exercise routines. And I can't say yoga. The yoga was better in the last city I was in, but I mean like just those kind of things. And the introspection I've experienced is the best it's ever been in this environment here. But what if I was in a defeated mindset and felt like, well, it is what it is, and that particular thing didn't work out, so now everything else is a loss, everything else is negative, everything else is not going to work, or it's not going to be worth my time and energy. And I think that's the biggest difference that sets people apart in the world, is how well you can alchemize anything that comes at you in life. If you're looking for life to be perfect or life to be of a certain experience to where you're not challenged, or you don't have these type of pitfalls, or you have this perfect marriage and you have perfect kids and you have a perfect career and you have, a perfect work-life balance, you have perfect vacations. Like, I feel like when I talk to people sometimes, that is the expectation that they're having. And I'm like, so when things don't go the way that you see them going or the way that you would expect them to go, what would be that scenario for you? Because it's not a matter of if something is going to happen that you don't like. It's a matter of just when. And you don't have to sit there waiting for the other shoe to drop. But what you do have to do is, in order to be successful, I feel, in this area, is to stay in the mindset of, how can I turn this into something beautiful? And sometimes this particular mindset gets me in trouble when people are still in their grieving stage. And I've learned to identify that more. I do less of, okay, it happened. What can we do? Because that's just who I am. But even me now, I'm seeing to where rest is important. Because like I haven't been in the office all day this week, but the first thought was you should go in the office because, well, you're fine. Even though you got a slight headache because you hit your head, even though, your nose is puffy and your eyes are puffy, you can just wear your glasses, even though putting your glasses on hurts the bridge of your nose. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? I sent a little email so fast and I'm like, you'll see me next week. Nobody cared. And sometimes we're like torturing ourselves in situations that is not even necessary. And I learned that about me. I'm like, I've been talking about rest so much lately, but it's like, why am I pushing myself to do something that nobody else cares about? Because that is still in us. It's very deeply embedded in us. But in that situation, I was just like, sure, that is not something that I would have preferred to happen. But in the meanwhile, guess what? I've been doing more of my steps than I've gotten all week because I'm not, in the car driving to somewhere at all. I've been very, very hands-on with my meetings when I talk to different faculty and stuff and coming up with solutions because I am a person that works best in their own environment. That's just who I am. And best at my own pace too, right? And that's just how I've always been. And I'm like brilliant when I get to be in that mode and connecting with my children. One of my daughters was having a little bit of a tough week and just being there for her. She was just laying next to me in the bed while I was working and doing meetings, just that availability. And I'm just like, yeah, so I wouldn't have wanted to hit my head and anything like that. But I was able to turn that situation into something like, how can this week be useful in a different type of way? How can I pay more attention to my home life if it's necessary? And it's not usually majorly necessary, but it's something that's important to me, right? And so many instances in life, there are things that happen. I call them a series of unfortunate events. And we allow these series of unfortunate events to kind of pound us down. It's like we're here and then it like hits us and then this thing hits us. And then we get laid off in a position. And then somebody in your family passes away. And then the kids have this type of interaction. And then the finances get in trouble. And so those sort of things, and we let it control our mind. We let it control the way that we're approaching life. And there's nothing to be said. There's nothing wrong with being able to pause and like grieve things and feel things and kind of like accept things and get to a point where you just like, this is not what I want it to be, but what can I do now? That, I feel like it's important to have time for that. But much of what's holding people back and what's holding them up is the idea that they have not learned to alchemize situations that are being thrown at them. They see every situation as hard, rock solid, as unchangeable, unmovable, and something that they just have to deal with and grit their teeth through. And they're hoping something from the outside is going to change it and something from the outside is going to shift it. And with most things, time will shift it. Situations will change. But if we're not in front of it and saying, I'm going to make the best of this, it may shift in another direction that we're also not interested in. Another direction that we also didn't take our ability to manifest and be a co-creator and get in front of, right? This is not saying that you can control everything all the time, but what we do have control over, something I know I get up every morning with control over, is how I feel about my life and my circumstances, how I feel about any given thing, and also being willing to look directly at things. Many people think that if they decide to not look directly at something, that somehow that's going to change the outcome of the thing. But being able to alchemize well means you have to know exactly what substance you're dealing with, so that way you can know what elements inside of there what elements are there and how they're going to react to the way that you choose to shift that circumstance into something that's useful. I bring it back to cooking because I cook a lot, right? It's the same thing. When you look at a product over here, a raw product, or like a cake baking mix or something like that, you need to know what ingredients are in it, and you need to know what ingredients are needed to be added to it, and you also need to know what type of influence needs to be put on it. So whether it's on the stove, whether it's in the stove, on the stove top, whether it's in the oven, whether it's high heat, whether it's low heat, that's going to give you the outcome that you want to have in the end. So if we're not looking directly at things and we're not accepting situations for what they are, it's very hard to alchemize it because we're not given the whole picture. So we're applying certain techniques and ideas that we have about what should work. And some of it's things that we've learned and we've been trying it for a long time and it's not necessarily working. And it's because we're applying the wrong tools and tactics to the situation to get a new outcome. And many times people don't realize what they're wanting is a different outcome. So when you learn to alchemize every situation in your life, no matter what it is, you become unstoppable. Because what you realize is that the only thing stopping you from being in the right state of mind, from feeling good about your life, from experiencing life the way that you want to, is your thoughts and the way that you're approaching life. Yes, situations and circumstances can always be crummy and they can always be things that we don't want to experience. And I think that no matter what level of life you are in, you are going to experience the vicissitudes of life. That is just the way life is. Sometimes when we're in places that we need to depart from, it can be more chaotic. But even at peace and even at rest, there's still going to be things like, I am so at peace. I am perfectly at rest. I don't have a stressor in the world, in my life in particular right now. And still, I found a way to bring something to my life by tripping over something and hitting my head and face. And so, like, no matter what, these things are going to play out in our lives. But the biggest question is, what are you going to do next? How are you going to approach it? How are you going to choose to reframe it so that it can work for you instead of against you, right? When we learn to alchemize, we become completely and utterly unstoppable in life. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.